Hi, readers. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. I'm Lori, and I'm happy that you're here. And I'm excited to talk about my top 5 books of 2023 so far. A lot of other booktubers have been doing this, and I've really enjoyed watching it. So I thought maybe you would like to see what my top 5 picks are this year so far, my 5-star reads. Now, there were a couple others. Actually, there were 2 others, so it would have been the top 7. But actually, when I went back and looked at those 2 that I gave 5 stars, I think it was more like 4.5, and I rounded it up. So the others are definitely solidly in the 5-star camp. So let's start with the number 5 on the list and work our way up to the first. Here we go. So number 5, I actually purchased on Libro.fm, and this was kind of a surprise impulse buy for me, but one that did end up being a right choice. I listened to Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. The co-author of this novel was unknown to me, but I actually started to hear about this because they were getting some buzz on some morning news show that Lisa typically watches. And it sounded to me like an amazing plot, and I really did enjoy this a lot. I don't want to spoil anything about this book, but it starts with a character named Olivia, who is divorced and has a teenage son, and they live on this property that was her parents', and she raises bees, hence the Mad Honey. And her son is pretty self-assured as a beekeeper himself. He goes to high school and starts to date a girl named Lily. And the story follows both of their kinds of timelines and their perspectives, which I really appreciated. I think both authors chose to write different perspectives, which I think is also nice, but they weave very well together. I thought it was beautifully written. I really loved the character of Lily, and I liked Olivia. I couldn't as much identify with Asher, the son, but that's okay. I mean, his piece of the novel was very important. Obviously, I won't say why. I think it was, as most Jodi Picoult novels are, I think it was surprisingly complex and it dives deep into human nature and human challenges and acceptance and love and community and healing and all those things. So I enjoyed it a lot. Number 4 on my list is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I got this on Kindle. It was on a deal day one day, so it was fairly cheap, and it was something that people were talking about, but it also was a topic that really kind of interested me because it follows family stories over a period of time. You know how I love those. In Black Cake, Eleanor dies at the beginning of the story, and her 2 children, Byron and Benny is a girl, come back to her home and to settle her estate and, carry, like, sort of get her affairs in order, if you will. But she did have her affairs in order. And in fact, she had left a very lengthy recording to tell them the story of her life and the trajectory that it took. And there were some things that she just really wanted them to know about her life and about the choices that she made. The book goes back to Eleanor's time and her growing up story and her coming of age story. Then it, of course, goes back to Benny and Byron and their inability to kind of get along with each other. They've been estranged a little bit as well. Benny was feeling a bit isolated for a number of reasons, and so she continued to kind of isolate herself, even from her mother. And I just loved how this story weaved, again, how the family kind of dynamics were told. Also, how the threads were weaved along the way was important to me, as you know. So it was very connective. I thought it was very propulsive. I remember finishing it pretty quickly. And I really highly recommend Black Cake. Number 3, I just finished recently, and I did talk about it being 5 stars, but that's Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. This one really kind of surprised me. And again, I don't like to know a whole lot about novels before I begin them. I had, though, read another Sarah Addison Allen. So the premise of it didn't necessarily surprise me because she does take some magical trajectories in her novels, which I appreciate very much. But I was sort of surprised because the plot of this wasn't like, I wasn't certain what was going to happen as a result of the synopsis, which I did read. The synopsis does give some clues as to who the characters of this novel are. So I will tell you that the story behind this is that this young girl, whose now name I can't remember, but Zoe, moves from her home living with her dad and her stepmom, they're not very close, any of them, it doesn't seem like, except for the stepmom and her kids. And she moves to Mallow Island. Yeah. Why did I doubt myself? Mallow Island, South Carolina, after her mother dies, and she goes through her mother's things. When she gets there, she discovers that her mother was living in this apartment complex, the Della Wisp. So there is a number of other people that are kind of living there, and she doesn't seem to be able to connect with any of them. And in fact, the only person that's really very connective is the guy who's supervising the property, and he's very kind and he's very, willing to help her. But some things ensue that connect all of the people in the apartment slowly but certainly. There are some birds in this story as well. There's a lot of magical kind of realism in this, certainly, and there are some otherworldly characters. I really enjoyed it. It's from the perspective of more than one person in this novel, so you're able to really follow that very, very well. And I recommend this one too. And I love this cover. I really do. It's just such a gorgeous little book, and it's not long. It's a quick read. And Sarah Addison Allen, if you love kind of some magical realism centered in some human kinds of current day situations or problems, if you will, mostly family dynamics or drama, but not always, I really enjoy her work. The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot is my second to the highest rated book so far in 2023, but it was really close. It was kind of a tie between 1 and 2. I can't find my copy of the 100 Years of Lenny and Margot, so that's a little distressing, but I suspect that perhaps Megan borrowed it because I couldn't stop talking about it. Still talk about it a lot to this day. This beautiful piece of work was written by Marianne Cronin, and it is about a young girl named Lenny and an older woman named Margot, and they find themselves in the same care facility in England for somewhat different reasons, but it is a care facility that is typically for people who need long-term care because of some condition or illness that they have. Lenny and Margot meet because Margot is trying to take something off of one of the nurses' carts, and Lenny distracts the nurses so that she can do so. And they form a kind of an easy friendship. Now, there is also a priest, and there is also a care minder that really is a lovely asset to this story. There are a number of other peripheral characters, but the main characters are Lenny and Margot. I don't want to give a whole lot away, except to say that their friendship begins with the desire to tell someone their story, that they want their story to be in the hands of someone else. In this case, Lenny doesn't really want to tell her life story to Margot, but she really wants to hear about Margot's life. This unfolding of their lives, which of course goes back into other timelines and other situations, is absolutely stunning in its ability to make you laugh, to touch your heart, to make you cry. to just understand each of their experiences thus far in their lives. The stories are not always, especially for Margot, I would guess, I would want to say they're not always predictable in the trajectory that you maybe thought would occur. I just adored it. I just adored it. And I probably recommend this one now more than any other book that I've read, except for the number one book on my list, which I actually just finished a few weeks ago. And that is No Two Persons by Erica Bauermeister. So if you watch my channel and you saw my reading wrap up, you know that I just said this one was hands down a star, a stunner. Also very unputdownable. I flew through this book in a couple of days. I got it from my library because I wasn't certain. It was one of my most anticipated books, but I also am noticing that I'm not certain that those most anticipated books are the ones that are going to end up being like the 5-star read that I hope that they will be. So I didn't purchase it, but I will absolutely be purchasing it, maybe even today because it's Prime Day. So, there are some books that are on sale that I have been, I've kept my eye on. No Two Persons. It is a story about an author who we get a little bit of her backstory. We get a little bit of her growing up. We get a little bit of her relationship with her brother. But beyond that, it's mostly about the fact that she sits down, she goes to college, and she sits down one day to write this book called Theo. Her name is Alice. I don't know that I told you that, but her name is Alice, and she's always wanted to be a writer, and I can really identify with that because that's true for me too. So she finally actually sits down and completes a full manuscript, and with the help of her college professor who sends it to a number of people, she is able to get it published. After the novel is published, you have a sense of the people for which this novel is somewhat life-changing. Each of the chapters after that focus on these 10 different people who find the novel Theo, and they have a different connection to the novel, and it brings forward something differently for each of them. And to me, that was just gorgeous and just so kind of innovative. There are a lot of books about books, let me just say, and I love books about books, but this one was unique. It was connective. So again, that's my thing. It was also propulsive for me. It was touching and human and just so enjoyable. So that was my number one pick. Let's go back over the list. Number one is No Two Persons by Erica Bauermeister. Number two is The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot. Number three is Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. Number four is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. And number five is Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and of course, I would love to hear what your top 5 reads of 2023 have been so far. We can always learn from each other what reads we really want to put on our TBR, and that is part of the best experience that I have here on BookTube, is learning about and hearing about what you've read and how you've enjoyed it. So thanks for watching today. I hope you're having a lovely summer read experience. And as always, happy reading. Bye.